What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Brian, we got some DC news. Superman has officially wrapped. No more anything. We're just waiting for the movie now. No more script talk. No more runtime talk. Even though, I don't know, did we discuss runtime?
We did, yeah. So that's been, I think it was with credits, with post credit. Now it's officially 209. So I think the movie itself is about two, and then credits, and they got a little bit of post credit. So 209, pretty good number.
What has come out, though, is the budget for this movie.
Sort of.
Sort of, okay. Some interesting news about the inspiration for Lex Luthor, a character that we've had concerns about for this movie in terms of Nicholas Hoult playing it, and he has spoken about recently about his inspiration for this, and so we'll talk about that. Gunn has been rumored to be writing this secret script or movie, and we've had our speculation as to what. Batman was definitely top of mind for us, and we're not far off. But we've also spoken about a specific title that we would like to see, and we'll talk about that. Clayface casting updates. I don't know any of these names. I don't think I read some of the names for this part. We'll talk about the Clayface movie. And this Teen Titans starting casting calls. It looks like DC is trying to beat Marvels to this young Avengers or this young team up type of situation. So let's get started. Superman. It's almost here. I bought my tickets for Fantastic Four for July. I was surprised that I was able to get a seat for July 24th, which is 4th, is on a Thursday, the day before it officially comes out for everywhere on Friday, on the 25th. And I was able to get a 6 p.m. IMAX, so nice seat. I'm waiting on a couple of individuals to sort of join me because I bought 2 tickets and I forgot my son. When I buy tickets for movies, I don't care what's going on. I have to usually reevaluate, reorganize, move things over for that day. So my son is going to be away, so I won't be able to go with him. So I'm trying to find someone else to go with me. So we'll see. Tickets still haven't been announced yet, right?
June 12th.
June 12th. That is this week coming, right?
Correct. They go
Interesting.
on sale.
So what do you think about the supposed budget for this, Brian?
So we've had conflicting reports still on this, but the official word, and I stress official because it doesn't mean it's the truth, but it's what the studio is telling the publications, is that the budget for Superman came in at $225 million. You got to factor in, obviously, there'll be a heavy marketing campaign behind that as well, but that the movie is being viewed as break-even point somewhere around $500 million, and then sort of will be considered a strong success if it pushes into the $700 to $800 million range, which is pretty close to what we've been telling you all along. Is sort of 700 is they got the job done. You know, they start pushing $1 billion or whatever. That's like they hit a home run. Mm-hmm. But this thing really needs to clear at least 500 to just be relevant. There is still pushback on this 225 number. So there's a second number that continues to float out there. It's based upon some tax credit forms that have leaked, which claims the budget is actually closer to 360, not 225. So 360 would say you need probably 800 plus to break even, as opposed to 500. But for what it's worth, the studio's, I guess, setting the bar for this film at, let's call it 700 to 800, be considered a success all around.
That's a big number. Fantastic Four is, and I just want to look at it for comparative reasons. Fantastic Four is rumored is on a track to get how much on opening weekend? Over 100.
Okay, so the tracking on Fantastic Four's opening weekend, and this now includes the first day of ticket sales, which were strong, is 125 to 136 million US. So let's call that safely 250 to 300 million global opening weekend. Superman's early track was 175. So then you'd be hoping for 350 to 400 million global opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But Superman hasn't sold tickets yet, right? So we'll have that number for Superman is going to get revised once we see sort of the first couple of days of ticket sales after this week.
Do you think that revision will be a higher number?
My instinct is yes, actually. And the reason I say that is this point I made last week, that this has been a kids and a family summer. And there's always this thing about momentum where if you get the family out, as has happened for Minecraft and now Lilo and Stitch, like Lilo and Stitch is going to, I mean, that thing's going after the moon, right? That thing's going well north of $1 billion. Easy.
Mm-hmm.
But what tends to happen, right, is the family goes to the movies in April, they go in May, and while you and I are like hanging on every piece of Superman news for years and months, a lot of those people just aren't aware, right? They're not aware of much. And so they go into that movie and all of a sudden the trailer pops up with crypto and all that. And a trailer pops up for Fantastic Four, right? And that's what gets the families to say like, oh, I'm interested in that, or I don't care about that. So that's why I think like Superman seems to be playing very well with the younger audiences, in part because of the dog, in part because it looks a little more fantastical. And as a result, I do think there is real momentum for this, if it's good, for people to be like, yeah, I got to be there in July. What I can't totally tell is I actually think Superman's biggest competition is not Fantastic Four. I think it's Jurassic the week before, because kids and dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So I can't tell how much Jurassic is siphoning off the Superman interest, but it feels like the Superman interest is there, at least for the opening weekend. A little more so than Fantastic Four. I was not surprised. I don't know how you reacted. I was not surprised to see the early track for Superman be higher than Fantastic Four. I've been saying that for months. And the ratio was about what I would have thought, which is Fantastic should be better than Cap 4, certainly better than Thunderbolts, but not at the level of Superman. And that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah. It should be an interesting weekend. There's certainly a lot of excitement amongst the Superman fans that want to see this movie, and perhaps we'll see this movie a couple of times. Brian sent me a text asking me over and under if we're going to be seeing it over 5 or below 5 times. I say below. I don't go to the movies that much for a movie, even if I absolutely love it. So I for me, it's going to be under for Superman fans if they really like it. Damn, 5 times is a lot. And there
5
are
is a lot.
people who,
I think it's 3 is probably the more. If we're setting a betting line, I say 3, because 3 would be like 1 for yourself, like 1 for the family, 1 with some of your friends, right? That would be like, if it's really good, it's 3, right? You get pulled in. I think you get pulled into 5 is like, in my life, that's usually the max. I've done it a couple of times. Well, like Dark Knight, that was 5. Like I did that 5 times.
really?
Oh, yeah.
I think I saw that 3 times.
So like I couldn't see that enough. But it also was like, I saw it IMAX, I saw it regular. And that's this case with this movie. Like I'll see it IMAX, I'll probably see it 70 millimeter. I'll probably see it regular. Like, I think you have fun with that too.
Should be an interesting weekend.
There is, by the way, so before we leave the runtime, James Gunn got involved in this. You kind of pay attention because stuff started going around. There was a rumor that the studio made him cut the runtime.
What was the speculated or rumored runtime originally then?
I think at one point we heard it was like 228, 229. Okay. But the rumor is very specific, is that the studio came in, gave him notes, and forced him to cut it against his wishes. To which he said they couldn't do that even if they wanted to. That was his response, which is pretty ballsy. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing that's not true. I'm guessing if David Zaslav said it's going to be this way, then it's going to be this way. But I think it's a little bit of semantics, because I think what we've heard, which makes a lot more sense, is James Gunn's been fiddling a lot based on the screenings.
Yeah.
I think it's not the studio who forced the cut. It's the audience who forced the cut. And what seems to be cut is he had to dial back the humor because the audience wasn't having it. So I think the more accurate thing is James didn't on his own out of the blue cut it to 209. He took the feedback of the audience and said, this is where I'm going to end up. They need a little less humor. I got to take that out. And here we are to it. So I think he's kind of splitting hair. He's like, oh, the studio didn't make me do it. I'm like, yeah, but you did it based on feedback, which is healthy. I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's been going around.
Yeah, I mean, it's different if you do the test screenings and the feedback is from the target audience. That's different than executives who there's not a lot of kind of respect for creative perspective here. So
yeah, the difference is the studio might look at it and say the film has to be predetermined at this length regardless of what's in it, whereas the audience feedback would be you just kind of fiddle until you've kind of satisfied the audience in the test screenings, and that length is the length, whatever that is, 215, 205. Yeah. So, but there's definitely tales of studios that are like, it can't be more than, and they just give a number. So that has nothing to do with like how good the film is. Yeah.
Hoult. When I read this, man, I was like, why, yo? Like, why? I understand he gave a unique performance. But at the end of the day, Gene Hackman is who he is in terms of how he, you know what I'm saying? He has a unique performance. You can't do Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman is Gene Hackman. Just like somebody, the only person that could possibly go the Denzel route is his son. Because you naturally hear the voice in it. Yeah. But Gene Hackman, in terms of the type of Lex Luthor he was, would you say it was a little bit goofy? A little bit? Possibly. Especially with Otis next to him, right?
Absolutely. He's a ham. He's hamming it up. He's over the top. He's not looking at the comics.
Yeah.
I'm sure that one to me is he's working with Richard Donner. And Donner wanted something a little lighter than what the comics portrays. And so Hackman took his own affect. Because at this point, Hackman's already done French Connection. He's already won an Oscar. So he's riffing on what you expect Gene Hackman to sound like.
Yeah.
And he's making it over the top. The greatest criminal mind. That's why he says that stuff, right? That's why he sounds like that. Because it sounds like Gene Hackman was kind of on this like playful steroid or whatever. Yeah. He's not trying to be comics accurate Lex in any sense of the word.
Yeah. So it's disappointing for Nicholas Hoult to use that as an inspiration in my eyes. But let's see how that comes out on screen. What were your thoughts when you heard that? Did you give like, really? That's the reaction that I had, was like, really, him?
So he said Gene, meaning Gene Hackman, is one of my all-time faves just as an actor in general. So I went back and watched Gene, and Michael Rosenbaum, who was the first Lex I saw growing up watching Smallville. It's interesting when you play a character that's been played before. You're working from a different script, but it's fun to draw inspiration from those places. So he gives the shout to Michael Rosenbaum as well, which that one makes a little more sense for Hoult, given the age is a little closer. But even that, again, the medium's different. I mean, Rosenbaum is playing a young, up-and-coming Lex in a young, almost teen-type drama. That's not an adult-style Superman. So I think he's just saying, like, these are the two I'm most familiar with, so I'm sort of honoring those. But as you said when we were exchanging text, the obvious one that's sitting right there, why does no one ever look at? Like, is there something about the animated medium that makes it, like, somehow shameful for a live action actor to say, I looked at what most people would consider to be the best representation of Lex Luthor that's ever been done?
Gunn should have done a Kevin Feige and sort of feed him, like Kevin Feige on the set of the X-Men original with Bryan Singer. He was feeding him Wolverine comics. James Gunn should have been like, look at this. Let's talk about this. Look at this interpretation. If it was me and he told me Gene Hackman is, I was like, nah, forget about him. Forget about him. Concentrate on, okay, Michael Rosenbaum is one of those Lex Luthors that people sort of have high praise for his performance and his interpretation. But Lex Luthor in the animated series is like, dude, bring that character to life. But we'll see, Brian. We'll see what this is going to look like.
Presumably when Hoult was cast, you would think there was a meeting of the minds between him and Gunn to say, what do you envision as Lex? And then the actor, like, what do you envision as Lex? And you kind of use that to get to the place of something based on the comics, something that comes from the organics, and then you get the portrayal. And I think back to, I'd have to find the quotes, but I remember distinctly, because of how controversial the casting was, Ledger and Nolan's first meeting about the Joker. Because nobody thought no one saw it, right? No one saw, like, you've seen Heath Ledger's boyish sort of heartthrob work, and you're like, Joker, what the? But there's an interview where Ledger talks about his first meeting, and he went into Nolan, and he had his own notes. So he had gone and read the comics, he had watched some of the material, including, for example, like the Nicholson Joker, right, which had nothing to do with his portrayal. And he has a comment, if I can find it somewhere. He's like, I sat down with Chris and he said, he's like, I really have the feeling that I can do this more as sort of like an unhinged, maniacal, true lunatic. And apparently Nolan looks at him and says, that's exactly what I want you to do. And like, that's kind of where it starts, right? But it's like the two of them have a specific vision based upon all the material, say, this is what I can pull from the character. This is what I can do. And I have to think Hoult and Gunn had that conversation. And I can't imagine we wound up in a place again where they were like, Hackman was part of that. I just, as good an actor as Gene Hackman was, like, that's not the character. That is the Nicholson Joker. That's like it's fun to watch. It's awesome. And a legendary actor played that part, but that was for him in that movie, in that time. It is not applicable to what we're trying to do today. So the other thing I'm surprised Hoult didn't pull from, honestly, is like from business. Like I would have been interested to see, like, what if he looked at like actual CEOs or actual people, public figures in the business world, and said, like, that person has just like the public persona has a vein that I feel like looks and sounds and feels the way Lex would as the CEO of Luthor Corp. I'm surprised that didn't make it in, because they're trying to do something with this movie that feels a little more, they're applying the modern sensibilities to it. So why not do it with his character?
If you recall where Heath Ledger got his inspiration to sort of get the voice, do you recall that?
I don't actually.
Really? Wow. Damn, I got to send you that. But he got this from a specific person. I found this out years ago. And once you listen to this guy talk, Brian, you're going to be like, oh, okay. This is where he got this sort of Joker-esque sort of speech pattern. It's very fascinating how he transformed into that guy that he sort of saw the Joker in terms of how he talks. And you gotta look it up, man.
Okay.
It's crazy where he got that inspiration from. But yeah, man, this is a concern. But again, we'll wait to see what this movie and let me ask you this. If Lex Luthor, we love Rachel Brosnahan.
Mm-hmm.
Superman on point so far.
Mm-hmm.
If Lex Luthor is not, because again, he's one of his biggest foes. Lex Luthor again is a villain who should be treated similarly as a villain. He should be one of the greatest villains portrayed. He should be up there with the Joker. He should be up there with Thanos. He should be up there with Darth Vader. If it doesn't live up to that, and it's just okay, Brian. How do you feel about coming out of that movie?
Movie can't be a 5.
Yeah,
It can't. Like, I don't know. It's capped. It's not that it can't be good. It's not that it can't be enjoyable. But it cannot be a 5-star movie if Lex Luthor is mid.
I agree 100%.
And let's not forget what's also, you made the comparison to, Thanos and that. I actually think the Vader comparison is more apt only because Lex is a villain who must repeat in other installments. Lex is the guy who, as much as he's the central villain, will then, if used properly, he will then organize with other villains. Right, he will enlist the help of, I don't know, Metallo or or Bizarro. Like he'll do things with other villains where Lex is not just the sole proprietor of what's going on. So he has to work beyond this film, right? If the object of this film is like, oh, we're going to kill Lex at the end of it, well, that's stupid too, and James Gunn's not going to do that. So this character, there's like a part, like I said, maybe it's part Vader. It's almost like part Nick Fury. Like he's got to be around over and over again, pulling the strings, coming in for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And then sometimes he's bigger than that. But in theory, we should have Nicholas Hoult in our lives, not just in this movie, but going all the way through, Batman movie, Justice League movie. Like Lex should be kind of around and everywhere. So if this doesn't work, like, it's kind of a governor on a lot of things.
There was an episode of Justice League Unlimited when the android that Lex Luthor built was coming back.
Oh, he had a Mazo? That thing?
I don't know if it was a Mazo. A Mazo is I think, a little bit different. Probably, I'm not sure. He's in gold. He's in gold color.
I think that is a Mazo. Yeah. And he's like unstoppable, right?
Basically? Yes. Yeah. So he's coming back to Earth and he like defeats the Justice League, the entirety of the Justice League. We're talking about not a Justice League that have 7 people. We're talking about
the unlimited one, the full room.
Yeah. Beats them. But when he comes to Lex Luthor, and I think Adam Smasher or the Atom is with him, and they go into, like, let's call it the quantum zone, right? And the dude still finds him. And Lex Luthor has a conversation. And you was like, in that episode, you like Lex Luthor and how he handled that, yo. Mm. This can't be a Lex Luthor. Yes, he's I don't know if he's evil. He has his own philosophy and own perspective. Does evil things or things that people will consider evil? Yes. But there's a certain thing about him that you sort of respect.
No, his motivations are always rooted in like protecting the Earth, right? His motivations are like, imagine if a guy like this went off the rails. We can't allow that, right? Part of the sales pitch is like, yeah, it's the Magneto sales pitch. Is like, you can get on board with what this guy is saying. It's just that his tools and methodologies, and he has no line, and like, yeah, it leads him to do these diabolical things. But
he's almost like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. He's the only one that can do it.
Yeah, with the resources and the knowledge. And then, how do you think he becomes president, right? I mean, he doesn't do it by beating people over the head with evil.
Yeah. He's not the mustache twirling guy.
No.
Gunn is writing, supposedly, I don't know if it's a rumor still.
Still a rumor, yeah. No, rumor. Yeah. This is all rumor, but it's a cool rumor, a fun rumor.
So he's apparently writing World's Finest. Cool, for sure. But I wonder if we're sort of going down the same path as the necessity to bring Batman into the fold by putting him into Superman. Mm-hmm. And we get into this sort of Batman versus Superman situation, which it won't be necessarily about the final fight between Batman and Superman. There's not going to be none of that. I don't think so, at least.
No.
I think certainly there's going to be inspiration from that Superman, Batman. animated cartoon that was
So 3 amazing episodes of TV right there.
when he flipped Superman and Superman was on the ground like wondering what had happened.
That's enough. I think you got your answer.
That interaction, yo. And Superman uses X-ray vision to see who it is. And he's like, Wayne, you peaked. Yo.
You peaked. That's the thing. Bruce is the best part of that. I'm sorry. Bruce, not Batman. Bruce is the best part of that show to me. Because the stuff he says when he is Bruce and he's like messing with Lois, like that to me is the best part of that episode.
But so, okay, you found out my identity. Now I'm going to find out yours.
Yeah.
And then when he saw, and then he looked out, and this dude goes like this. And then he's out. Come on, man. Come on, man. How do you not do something like a play on that, you know?
Obviously, it'll be different. Like, I don't think Bane's going to be a part of this version of it. The swap, I'm sure, will be. Right, the costume swap, I'm sure, will occur as part of if this is true. But let's think about the big questions, because I think you're 100% right. So first off, pat on the back to us, because what did we say James Gunn had to have been? If this is true, what did we say James Gunn had to have been writing as his mystery project?
He had to be writing Batman.
He wasn't going to miss his one shot.
It ain't going to be freaking Plastic Man or the Wonder Twins or freaking Hawkman. None of those. There's no secret to that. If that's a secret, have anybody ever told you a secret and you're like, what? That's a secret? Like, get out of here. Like, who cares? So there we go. How do you feel about them? I wouldn't say rushing it, because we've gotten enough Batman solo films. Even though I'm not mad at another solo Batman. We love Batman.
Yeah.
But we have to also understand that James Gunn is building this universe. He already has stated that this is a much older Superman. He has a kid, Damian Wayne.
Oh, hang on. So I think you're hitting on one of the big questions with this rumor.
Okay.
Because this rumor does not come with any details about anything else. Okay. So question number 1 to me is Brave and the Bold still happening if he's writing this?
Okay. If he's writing World's Finest, I think they're looking at it from the perspective of, okay, we got Batman 2 coming out. It's a solo Batman film. Now, granted, if we do Batman Brave and the Bold, there's a solo Batman film, but with a lot more characters in it and a lot more of the Batman universe in it. Which would make more sense? Do we give fans another solo Batman adventure? Certainly with all these other things involved, Damian, which I still think is a good attempt at trying to do something different with Batman. It's not a young Batman, it's an older Batman.
I agree.
Do you think World's Finest is set before that?
I do not think both are happening in the same time frame. So the reason I bring this up as number 1 question is we already just saw the Authority project went from sort of a top priority to we have no idea how to make this work. And yeah, it might happen someday, but it's like over here now, gathering dust. Very publicly, right? They admitted that. So let's not pretend like everything that they've publicly said about Chapter 1 is somehow locked and loaded. It's not. And the reality is this Brave and the Bold project seemed like it had some momentum, right? Muschietti becomes the director. They got the writer's room going on it. And then you've heard crickets on this project. Crickets. For now, a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where like nobody knows if Muschietti's still involved. He ain't talking, right? I think he's not involved. So I think it's not far-fetched that James Gunn, after doing Superman and feeling like he cracked Superman, was like, I have a way into Batman. And we know David Zaslav is pressuring him to bring a DCU Batman in. So Sid James was like, fine, if I'm bringing the DCU Batman, I'm bringing it in with my own pen, and I'm bringing it into my own corner of the universe. And that's how it's going to be. I think it's at least a realistic question to say, like, Brave and the Bold might just be, if it's going to happen, is way down the road now. It's at least a question. I'm not saying I have news. I'm just saying, like, I don't see a world where they announce, hey, we're doing World's Finest, and we're fast-tracking Brave and the Bold, and Matt Reeves is doing Batman 2. I don't see it.
Yeah, me neither.
Second question. Do you think this is, for all intents and purposes, Superman 2, which is exactly what you're asking about, going down the same path where BVS became the replacement for Man of Steel 2? Do you think this is Superman 2, or is it in addition to Superman 2?
I think it's an addition. I don't know if it's like a direct sequel. I think this is just gearing up towards the Justice League, putting Batman and Superman together, and them deciding what the next steps are. I think it's that. I think it's them coming together and building out this Justice League situation. And I would assume that after World's Finest, we're not going to get a full-blown Justice League, but we're going to get what I would assume is an arc that leads to Justice League. We're perhaps in an arc now with some of the obviously we got to see what happens with Superman, but there are other superheroes in there. But I don't know. I sort of always look forward to Batman solo films. I don't need to see Justice League 1, 2, 3. You know, I'd rather see a Batman film with some of the iconic stories that they've had. The Red Hood. Doomsday. I mean, not Doomsday.
Doom.
Justice League Doom.
Doom. Yeah. That's a good one. It's a very good moral dilemma.
That is not a good one, Brian. That is a fabulous one.
Yeah. But the idea is a great one for a conscience check on Batman because of what he inadvertently created.
Absolutely. Yeah. So who knows what James Gunn is doing? I'm just hoping that he's not feeling the pressure and having to put this together because of the demands of David Zaslav, because that's the one that's sweating and making phone calls and pounding his fist on what he wants to achieve, not what he wants as a movie.
So because of the BVS experience, I find it hard to believe they would exactly replicate the timeline of, like, we introduce Superman and then there's no sequel to Man of Steel. Instead, we bring in Batman and bring in Wonder Woman. So I agree with you that I think it's in addition. I think if I'm looking at, like, what's on the board, I think they're looking at Superman does well. There's going to be a Superman 2. They've got Supergirl. That's locked and loaded. I don't think there's any way we get a Justice League before Wonder Woman is recast and gets her own project. Because, again, you got to go with the CEO's words. What did he say? 4 pillars. Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Supergirl. Listen, I get it. Why is Supergirl on the Mount Rushmore? Yeah, we can have investigations. But the reality is that's the guy who's charting the course and cutting the checks, which means no Justice League movie, to my mind, is going to happen until those 4, all 4, are firmly in place on the board with something solo. That's, I don't know what we're talking about. So I think World's Finest is probably in addition to the Superman Corin Sweat path. If I had to guess, this is a total guess, it is a possible replacement for Batman 3. because I'm still not convinced after everything that's gone on with the Reevesverse that we get a third one. So I could see Batman 2 does get made. It has to get made. We wrap things up with that one. And then what would have been that Elseworlds Batman 3, now we take that off the film schedule and we have this world's finest film out there in 2029, call it, something like that. That I could see being a possibility. And that would line up with, look, I mean, they're still doing the Paradise Lost. That's like a prequel series. Maybe Diana gets introduced. I still think she does. And then clearly they'll do a Wonder Woman movie, solo movie after the Supergirl movie. And then, you know, Justice League, you're looking probably 2031. Like it's out there, right? I mean, DC's probably going to be owned by somebody else by the time that gets made. So, but I do wonder if it means the Brave and the Bold thing is just kind of off to the side. And it fits one other thing that I've noticed a little bit that I'm kind of feeling like is a Zaslav thing and not a Gunn thing. You notice how like the more offbeat stuff is kind of starting to get dialed back a bit. So like if chapter 1, right, was like a real healthy mix of like, all right, down the middle was Superman. And then like the Authority, like Creature Commandos, those felt very Gunnish to me, right? Very like, and now it's like we're sticking to Superman and we're sticking to a World's Finest, which honestly is a little more conventional Superman Batman, right? Whereas Brave and the Bold is a little more out there Batman. And like now the Authority is kind of off the board and we're focused on Lanterns making that prestige TV and we're focused on Supergirl and getting her off the ground. Kind of feels more like we're putting stuff down the middle of the fairway. And that doesn't feel very James Gunn to me. That feels more like the man upstairs saying like, hey, keep this simple. Keep this simple until we making money.
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
That's it.
Yeah,
say
man.
What? Right? Doesn't it feel that way a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Of course. I'd be in the same position. You're like, yo, Authority, Creature Command. I'd be in the same position. Like, yo, don't get into your own things that you think, and only a few people. Creature Commandos is a hard sell. Yo, nobody talks about Creature Commandos, yo.
And he's
nobody
like,
talks.
Yeah. And he's like, I'll give you a little bit of that on TV. I'll give you a little bit of it. Go play with your Peacemaker. Go play. But like for big screen stuff, like it also fits with the whole thing of like all these titles getting simplified, right? Superman's just Superman. Supergirl's just Supergirl. You can feel it. You can feel that someone inside the building is like, yo, just
don't go crazy, man. You got to rein James Gunn in. You got to. If you give him control, he's going to give you freaking stuff.
And they're still experimenting because we'll talk about Clayface, and we'll talk about, and that we're going to talk a little bit about Teen Titans. But like, I don't know. There's a little bit of this whiff of just like, we want to bring it back to center.
Yeah.
We want to get some wins on the board, i.e. make some money. And that's and as a result, I think Gunn is sort of adhering to that, but maybe doing it in a way where he's like, yeah, this is still satisfying because I get to write Batman. Finally.
Yeah.
Which I think we're here for. I think we're here to see what he can do with Batman. I'm all right with that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Before we move on, my number one top contender for Wonder Woman, I think, will be, and I think most people have already sort of gotten behind this possibility, is Adriana Arjona.
Okay.
To be Wonder Woman is just makes sense.
I do think, I will say, like, I know she's also come up and now she's in the proper, I do think Alexandra Daddario looks like Wonder Woman.
Who's that?
So she was like one of the stars of the first season of White Lotus. Okay. She was actually, when she was much younger, she was Annabeth Chase in the very weak Percy Jackson movies. But just look her up, her appearance. I think she looks like the part come to life. And now she's like 30, like maybe 31. Like, so I don't know.
What's her name?
Alexandra Daddario.
Interesting. She's 39.
Really? Wow, she looks like she's like 29. I didn't know she's been. Okay, maybe not then. That's a little old. Although I guess Diana's immortal, but still, yeah.
Yeah.
How old is Adriana Arjona, though? She can't be that much younger than that, can she?
33.
Wow, I would never have guessed. I would have had those opposite. Okay. I have no complaints if she is, by the way. She's
Yeah.
Although we did hear that thing that was at Star Wars, they have big plans for Bix, so I don't know. She might be tied up with doing some Andor spin-offs for a while. We'll see, but
we'll see.
She can do both.
Definitely. Yeah. Clayface. Some casting updates. There was a list of names given, Brian. I don't know if you have them in front of you, but I haven't heard any of these guys.
Well, you know one for sure. So
who's that?
We'll go through it. So there's 4 actors. They are all British.
Okay.
The one you would know is Jack O'Connell, because he was the villain of Sinners.
Oh, okay.
So he's the one you would recognize right away.
Okay.
The one I'm actually leaning toward of the 4 is Leo Woodall. He was on one of the seasons of White Lotus, but he did a kind of an uneven series on Apple Plus called Prime Target, where he played like a math genius. But I think he just sort of has like a very chameleon affect to me that I think could work for what they're doing here. Like he's handsome, but you can rugged him down to where he's not just like so obviously good looking, I think. And then there's a George McKay, who was the lead of 1917, the World War I adaptation by Sam Mendes a couple years ago, and then Tom Belay, I think, who is the 4th. But all Brits, all pretty young, and supposedly. So I think with this movie, the only real question to me is just this: like, is the script being rewritten, or is it being doctored and touched up? If it's just being touched up and they're going with the Flanagan script, and it's Watkins directing, and they're moving forward on the lead, I feel very good about this project as an experiment. If they're going back to scratch and redoing Flanagan's script because he's not able to direct it, I'm a little more concerned as to what's going on here.
Based on the British actors, they're all British. What sort of movie are you thinking we're gonna get in terms of performance from this lead as Clayface? This is very dramatic, very well performed. Not to say that when you cast for movies that you want bad performances, but you want the best performances. I guess some casts are made based on the name being a hot name, and but this one is very specific. It seems like, Brian. What were your thoughts when you saw the list?
The way I've heard the movie described is the word that comes to mind is the lead is going to be tormented, because the one they're pulling from the comics is sort of like, right, the underlying character is sort of an actor, ironically, who's struggling, losing relevance, and turns to substance, chemical experiment to try and keep himself in the limelight, and inadvertently triggers the formation of the Clayface persona. So
very well done in the Cape Crusader.
Correct. Exactly. So I think they're looking for someone who can really sell you on like an actor playing an actor, like somebody kind of inhabiting a fake persona, and then inside being really beat up, broken, tons of psychological issues, and then emerges as this strange kind of ultimately Batman villain, but a character that has some sympathetic qualities. I think it's a range part. I mean, I think it's definitely a range part that they're looking for. So I don't think this is goofy. I don't think this is comedy at all. So I think this is guys going into the dark side of acting to do this. That's what they want.
And I'm there for it.
Absolutely. And again, part of the reason why this, I just got done saying Zaslav wants the stuff down the middle. The reason why this is okay is because the budget's like $30-40 million. It's an experiment to see if they can create genre within DC Studios. That's why they're totally on board with this.
And horror, man, we've been talking about this for how long already, that we should be getting something like this?
And remember, even though it wasn't horror, remember, WB is still going to look at things like this through the lens of Todd Phillips' Joker. $40 million budget, made $1.1 billion, and is effectively a character study of someone who ultimately became a Batman villain. If you're looking for the template that they're like, what would be the gold standard for this movie? It's that movie.
Yeah.
that idea.
Yeah.
It's not going to make $1 billion because the Joker's got more cachet with people than Clayface does. But could it make $250 million if it's good? Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what you 30 million to get 250. Hells yeah, sign me up.
Yeah. And people talking, because if you do it right, now you have a runway into the thing that Sony always dreamed of but never pulled off with their Sinister Six, which is you want to bring lesser villains for your one of your main heroes and give them a platform and introduce people to, I don't know, pick who you want from Batman's Rogues Gallery. But, Man-Bat, like you have a way into these other characters where you're like, hey, let's make them horror. Let's make them stars of small horror vehicles. We'll make money off them. We make them scary, legitimately scary. And someday, our Batman has to deal with some of these.
And that's again, my thing has always been, if you're going to do a villain like you did with Penguin, is like, the question is, how does Batman deal with someone like this? This is This is what Batman has to contend with. How's he gonna do it? We don't know, but you better do it dope. Because Batman, when he does things, is dope. That's it. That is it.
But you love I love the idea of these dark. If you're going darker and going into this tonally, Batman in many ways is a horror movie character. We just don't see him often go quite to that extreme, but he is, right? He relies on the presence, the scare, like the darkness, right? And so the idea of these villains who pull him closer and closer to breaking his rules and crossing lines in order to stop them, like that's the essence of good Batman to me.
I wish I could spend 20 minutes talking to James Gunn about Batman and how he's going to do this, yo, because...
I think that the dream would be like you end up on a flight next to him, or like he can't go anywhere. He can't go anywhere for like 5 hours. So that you just start talking movies. And
like, hey James, I know you probably don't want to talk. You got your thing on your face so you can go to sleep, but you're gonna have to ask somebody to move me because I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna get it out of you. Now let's discuss. Before we wrap this one up, Teen Titans. They started casting calls for this group, and I am under the impression that I think this could be more successful than Young Avengers, because Young Avengers, like, Teen Titans is a little bit different. Teen Titans we've seen on HBO Max. I was watching it for some time, but I just, left it. It can certainly be something interesting, perhaps in the world that James Gunn is building. Who knows? Am I curious about it? Not really. Excited about it? No, not at all. I think that this is an attempt to beat the MCU in a young team movie and beat him to Young Avengers like they did with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, they beat Captain Marvel. They beat the Submariner with Aquaman. I think there is that sort of, because at the end of the day, it's a competition. We got to do something first before they do it. Because if they do it first and we do it second, it's just going to be us. The lens is going to be viewed as us trying to copy them or something like that. So, your thoughts on this possibility?
So what we have in the news, the article that's kind of interesting. So we've known that Anna Nagira, who's been all over these projects, right? So she helped write Women of Tomorrow, Supergirl, like now called Supergirl. Along with Tom King, who wrote the comic. And then she's been writing this project. And it references the casting calls have gone out, but they have a shoot date for early next year, which is interesting because they don't have a director yet formally. So that would lead me to believe if the casting call has gone out, they must have one. They haven't said. So they must be close on a director, but maybe we'll find that out this summer. So I'm fascinated to see who that is, because I think that'll be a key determinant into, where this goes. But to your point about the competitive aspect of this, I am fascinated because this is occurring at the same time as we know Kevin is trying to get Young Avengers to the starting blocks. And let's not forget, they're trying to build this X-verse with predominantly younger generation characters. So presumably a lot of the same actors and actresses are going to get calls for Teen Titans and X-Men, or at least they're going to get meetings. And I think it's hard to see like a lot of them being like, yeah, I can do both because the time commitment is going to be so big, right? So I'm very interested. And it goes to when we talk about our Marvel thing, I had this on my question of like, what's going on here? I'll ask about casting stuff. And I wondered if this project had something to do with it because it kind of came out of nowhere that all of a sudden they were like, hey, we got a shoot date. You know, she's writing it. I guess it sounds like the script's making good progress. And now we're ready to get some actors on board to shoot this movie that's supposed to be younger generation. So I tend to agree with you. This actually does have a chance, again, if budgeted properly, if directed properly, to find a lane to go after, you know, a younger audience. Although, admittedly, I'm telling you, like, I think like if Superman does what it's supposed to, I think they're going to get that younger audience already. That younger audience is going to be sitting there for them. And if Supergirl is good, like that's going to only build on that. And I have one more note on Supergirl before we sign off, as you know. Yeah, I just was surprised it felt like this was as close to happening as it seems to be. And now we just wait to see who they include. Because I mean, that's the other thing: who's on the roster, right? Who they decide to pull in for the first round of this.
Because if it's going to be in this world, I think we're definitely going to get the similar to how they did in the cartoons. What was it called? It wasn't Titans. It was Young Justice.
Young Justice, yep.
Where you get cameos from Superman and sort of their guidance. And I think we'll probably see a little bit of that as well, which should be interesting. But yeah, let's see how that one goes. Teen Titans. But let us know in the comment section below what you guys... well, we said all we wanted to say regarding Superman, and I think you guys are just waiting for the movie to come out. But specifically about Hoult's Lex Luthor, that is a big concern, man, because like Brian said, if his performance isn't up to what we think Lex Luthor should be, and it is a disappointment, he could be good, but it is not Lex Luthor.
My one note on Supergirl: this movie, I hope it's good. This movie is being constructed in part with marketing in mind. Because first we're going to introduce Jason Momoa and Lobo. Here's a big star. We're going to introduce him in Supergirl. Then we found out Pablo's nemesis, Crypto the dog, has a bigger role, including flashbacks to Crypto as Puppy on Krypton, building a relationship with Kara Zor-El in Supergirl. That's like a cheat code. We're just going to put the puppy in Supergirl to try to get the kids to go see it. Anyway, just let you know that is so transparent. Exactly. It's so transparent what's going on here. But it might work. It might work.
Yeah.
Hey, they got to try to break the curse of the female-led action superhero thing, and like, you know, bringing in Momoa and bringing in the puppy, like those are not bad ideas. So anyway, I was like, Pablo might be out on this movie just because of the puppy.
I just don't want the dog taking up screen time, but let's see what it's all about. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of Gunn writing possibly World's Finest, Clayface, and what type of movie you think we're getting based on the specificity in terms of actors and where they come from. And then, and your thoughts on Teen Titans. Are you sort of in the same boat with not caring about younger superheroes? Because I know every time I mention Young Avengers to anybody, it's like people don't really care. Teen Titans is a little bit different, but still, like, do you want to see that? It all depends. We haven't really gotten much. We've certainly gotten a bit of Young Avenger-esque type situations in the movies, so we've sort of seen what that possibly may look like or how that may turn out. I don't know, but none of what they've shown us has gotten us more interested in the Young Avengers. So we'll see there. But yeah, remember to hit that like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time on Energy Report.